Hi, everyone. Welcome back to ONYX Pages. My name is Njeri, and I am very excited to be here with a group of brilliant writers as we celebrate ONYX Pages' 5-year birthday. Yay! And
Yay.
also, we reached a milestone this year on ONYX Pages, which is the milestone of 10,000 subscribers. It has been quite a long road. I am humbled, grateful, proud to be here. And I thought it would be a great opportunity to just pause, spend an hour with some people, some very gorgeous people who I admire very much, and whose writing and whose place in community Black spec fic have really impacted me and shaped my thinking. So I hope that those of you who are watching that you feel free to communicate with us and celebrate with us using the live chat function. And our friends who are watching on the replay, welcome as well. And please feel free to share any comments or questions that you have in the comment section below, and I'll be watching the comments in the following days and will be responding. So without further ado, I am going to introduce our guests. And so I'm going to start with Eugen. Eugen Bacon is an African Australian author of several novels and fiction collections. She's a 2022 World Fantasy Award finalist and was announced in the honor list of the 2022 Otherwise Fellowships for doing exciting work in gender and speculative fiction. Eugen's short story collection, Dang Black Thing, by Transit Lounge Publishing, was a finalist in the British Science Fiction Association Forward Indies, Aurealis, and Australian Shadows Awards. Her creative work has appeared in literary and speculative fiction publications worldwide, including award-winning Australian Writing, Fantasy Magazine, Fantasy and Science Fiction, and Year's Best African Speculative Fiction. Her books in 2022 are A Mage of Fools, a novel, Chasing Whispers, a collection, and An Earnest Blackness essays. I don't know how you do it, but I'm glad. And her socials will be in the description. So welcome, Eugen.
Thank
Sia
you.
Clark Cheray is a BFA award-winning editor and Ignite award-winning writer and the author of Nebula-nominated novel The Unbroken, the first book in the Magic of the Lost trilogy, and the creator of Terrain's Arms, which I'm kind of in love with. Cheray graduated from Indiana University's Creative Writing MFA and was a 2012 Lambda Literary Fellow. She's been a personal trainer, an English teacher, and an editor, and is some combination thereof as they travel the world. When she's not writing or working, she's learning languages, doing P90 something, or reading about war and post-colonial history. The work has appeared in various SFF venues, including Tor.com, Uncanny, and Beneath Ceaseless Skies. So welcome, Sheree. LP Kindred. LP is a Chicagoan Angelino writer, editor, and teacher of speculative fiction from the axes of queer and Black identities, an alum of Hurston Wright, Vona, and Clarion workshops. LP's writing is featured or forthcoming in Faya Literary Magazine, LeVar Burton Reads, Speculative City, Prismatica, Escape Pod, Podcastle, Anathema, as well as anthology entries in Queer Blades and Voodoo Knots. Voodoo Knots present Reliving Mythology. Kindred is a co-founder of Voodoo Knots, a grassroots collective combating the underrepresentation and isolation of Black creators in speculative fiction. When not cheating on novellas with short fiction, LP can be found lifting heavy things, eating good food, dancing in moonlight, making deals with crossroad demons, and pretending to be fancy. And LP socials will also be in the description. Welcome, Elfie. Alex Jennings is a lifelong fan and creator of SFF who lives in New Orleans. His writing has appeared in Podcastle, the Podunk Review, Obsidian Lit, the Locus Award-winning Luminescent Threads, Connections to Octavia Butler, and in numerous anthologies, including New Suns, Speculative Fiction by People of Color, New Suns 2, and Africa Risen. His speculative poetry review column, Chapter and Verse, appears regularly in the magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction. He is a graduate of Clarion West 2003 and the University of New Orleans. He received the inaugural Imagination Unbound Fellowship to the Under the Volcano guided writing retreat in 2022. Alex says he's been moved backstage. That's not right. There we go. Front and center. Okay. Thank you for the note. He was born. Okay, Jennings served as MC and co-producer of the popular literary reading series Dogfish from 2014 until 2020. He was born in Wiesbaden, Germany, and raised in Gaborone, Botswana, Paramaribo in Suriname and Tunis in Tunisia, as well as the Columbia MD. His debut novel, The Ballad of Perilous Grace, is available wherever books are sold. And Francesca Ekwasi, welcome Alex, welcome back also to the stream. Francesca Ekwasi is a learner, storyteller, and multidisciplinary artist from Lagos, Nigeria. Her work has explored themes of faith, family, queerness, consumption, loneliness, and belonging. Francesca's debut novel, Butter, Honey, Pig Bread, was longlisted for the 2020 Giller Prize, was a finalist for CBC's 2021 Canada Reads, the 2021 Lambda Literary Award, the 2021 Governor General's Award, the 2021 Amazon Canada First Novel Award, and the 2021 Relit Award. Butter, Honey, Pig Bread was recently longlisted for the 2022 Dublin Literary Award. So welcome, Francesca. So you can see why I'm a little flustered because I am great. I am so happy to be here. All right. So good morning, everyone, and hello, everyone, no matter what your time zone in the chats. Nice to see you, Regina. Renee, thank you for celebrating with us. Pat, thank you for the congratulations and thank you for being here. Yes, some marvelous, marvelous Blackness to celebrate today. And morning, Sylvia. So I thought I would just take a few minutes. I've been thinking a lot about the ways in which we big up ourselves, the way we celebrate our accomplishments. And I wanted to take a second to talk a little bit about ONYX Pages. As I was sharing with everyone before we joined the live feed, ONYX Pages was born on Tommy and mine on our honeymoon in Vancouver. I filmed my first video in an Airbnb and also in a park, not knowing what it was going to turn into in 5 years, and certainly never imagining the ability to be here with these lovely guests, to call all of them parts of my community and some of them very, very close friends, and to have the ability to connect with 10,000 people through this platform. I didn't think this is what it would become, and I'm so glad that ONYX Pages has evolved to this. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about some of the specific things that I'm proud of, and then we are going to go to our guests. So I'm going to share the screen if this works. I think it might. Let me see. Tab. It actually might not. Okay. So, I think I did it. Can you see this little thing? Let's celebrate the accomplishments. I think so. Okay. So very briefly, ONYX Pages is the first booktube channel dedicated to speculative fiction on the platform. I've had the opportunity to interview both Black SIFWA Grand Masters, Samuel R. Delaney and Nalo Hopkinson. I'm very proud of that. And over the past 5 years, I have had the opportunity to meet, to learn from, and to be in community with over 20 Black SFF authors, many of them Black and queer, who write Black and queer speculative fiction. I'm the creatrix of the solar-powered Afrofuturism slow reading group, which has been operating on Facebook since 2014. At the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, I created and hosted the longest daily global reading sprint event in BookTube history. We had a group of amazing content creators who each did 1 hour of silent reading for 5 months straight every single day as a way to create a space for people who were quarantined to still get together and to enjoy each other's company despite the uncertainty of what then was what we thought would be a very short COVID-19 pandemic. I also created the Octavia E. Butler Slow Read, which is the first global slow read of Octavia E. Butler's published works in near chronological order. First with contents creators Sister Sci-Fi and Musical Tati, and now with myself and Musical Tati. And that started in September 2020 and will continue to January 2023. And I was also very, very pleased and grateful and humble to have been asked to be a guest of honor at the FIACon 2020 convention. The virtual convention in FIACon has been a finalist for the Hugo Awards, and it is a virtual convention of BIPOC speculative fiction. In addition to these accomplishments, on my channel, I created the 7 calorie shell rating system, the Kwanzaa Reflectathon, which is an annual event where we focus on reflecting on the books that we've read as opposed to purchasing more. It's meant to have us use the Kwanzaa principles as a way to reflect on the themes that we're reading and to encourage us to read more purposefully. And also, in 2 years ago, I did the Written with Purpose author series. Many of the authors who appeared on that series are here with us today. So I wanted to just list that because sometimes it's hard to toot your own horn. I didn't do all of this alone. I've had the support of my friends, my family, Tommy, who has allowed half of our house to turn into a studio on a regular basis, and so I'm really proud of this, and thank you for listening to that. Now we are going to turn to our wonderful guests. We're going to be ending right at the top of the hour, and I have prepared a couple of questions. As you know, on ONYX Pages, we talk about reading with purpose, and whenever I have the privilege of being with authors, I like to talk about what it means to write with purpose, because I think the relationship between the writer and the reader is important. It's an intimate one. It can be a transformative one. And I love to hear from all of you. So in no particular order, my first question is, what does it mean for, well, maybe I will help with the order. What does it mean to write with purpose? For each of you, and why have you chosen the written word as your medium? I'm going to start with Sheree, because you're first to my right on the screen.
Yeah. So writing with purpose and what that means to me is a bit complicated, and I certainly don't think I can even fully explain that right now. But I write first and foremost. I started writing for fun. I wrote because I would think about these little stories and like, oh, if I were in this situation or if I had a sword, this is how things would go down. Um, and I would read these stories and I really just wanted to be a part of them, and they seem so much cooler than real life. But as I got older and kind of started being a bit more aware of my subject position in the world, including the fact that I didn't ever really see like sword fighters who looked like me in all the fantasy books that I liked, I started to figure out why. And I studied um, like war history, I studied colonial history, and so now writing with purpose means taking this thing that I enjoy and ostensibly do for fun, um, to also be a very deliberate analysis, not just for me, but for the people who I hope will read my work. And most importantly, it's knowing that the people who read my work will not all be like me. And so when I write, I'm going in with as much intention as I could possibly understand at the moment of creation. Obviously, I learn more afterwards with other people's feedback. But I think about what am I saying and what will other people take away from that? And is it something that I want them to take away? Is it something that I want them to learn or sit with the same way that I've sat with the consequences of realistic things as reflected in fantasy or science fiction, um, while at the same time intentionally creating a space that does allow for the same enjoyment that I found in the genre to begin with.
Thank you, Eugen.
So, sorry, my voice is a bit funny tonight now. So, to me, writing with purpose means we've talked about representation, But to me, it means a lot more because my writing is initially a curiosity. And I like to write myself into my stories where I can see characters that I can relate to. And as readers, when we approach a book, we open it and we look for ourselves in it. And so, writing with purpose is about inclusivity, but it's also about voice. I believe that writing comes with a huge responsibility. It's like standing on a pulpit and talking to people, and you don't know how somebody will receive your message. It comes with that responsibility because you don't know the reach. And once you've written a book or whatever it is that you write, it's out of your hands. So, writing with purpose is using my voice to talk about social injustice, to talk about different ways of inclusion, to talk about things that I'm very, very passionate about. I am passionate about climate change. I am passionate about representation, and writing can be a way of normalizing it. I realized that over the last three books, some still in production, Major Fools has a bisexual character, which is my way of normalizing that. Secondhand Daylight, which is a time travel novel, has a queer character. I'm writing a new novel called Serengoti, which is a Black migrant story, and she is queer. And to me, that also is a way of normalizing it in such a way that it reaches a point that it's the new normal. Then we don't really have to talk about it because the representation is there.
Thank you. Alex?
Um, I love these answers, by the way. For me, writing with purpose means remembering that I hold language and the written word sacred in my heart, and honoring those beliefs and figuring out how best to connect with the minds and hearts of others who experience my work. And to me, it's about building those bridges faithfully and in a way that aligns with my own desires to communicate and figuring out what the story needs and figuring out how to give readers something a little bit more than what they might consciously want.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Francesca?
Hi, everyone. I mean, so far, your answers, thank you so much. Um, my answer is not nearly virtuous. For me, writing a purpose is about saving myself. And I don't know, I think a lot about the human condition, but I think a lot about that and just like the perpetual loneliness of existing in your own consciousness by yourself. And so for me, writing is about trying to connect. You know, if I can share my consciousness with you, the purpose is connection ultimately. Um, yeah. Also, for me, writing is like gossip because I think gossip is wonderful. I think it's like subversive and important when you're not punching down or harming people who don't need it. But it's like the hottest, best gossip and a way that we can connect and recognize. It's like a head nod, recognizing our experience of being alive. I hope that's coherent, but yeah.
Of course. Thanks, LP.
I really liked writing like gossip. I really like that. Um, yeah, for me, writing with purpose has been made even more. I've been thinking about it a lot lately because I've been watching a prequel about blonde people trying to figure out who's king, just like what happened in the first series. And there are a bunch of choices that are made there that are easily circumvented, whether that's like imagining another way of like moving through childbirth or imagining another way of uh, monarchy succession, or in the real world where we're imagining there not being a monarchy at all. Um, And I look at those and I just think about how all of those are choices. Choices that a lot of us are thinking about and thinking, oh, that's a foregone conclusion, but it isn't, because it's always a choice. So the written word is my medium because my first art form is singing. And so, like, I'm trying to figure out how to make the word sing,
Mm.
how to evoke a feeling from someone with these written words, and hope that, like, it carries the same power as it does if I were to sing a thing or to read a thing to a person. um, but also to write us into the future, to write us as the person who was chosen, and to write us as people who survive the horror. Because while there isn't enough there isn't enough written word about us doing those things, we already have. Um, so less about representation, but more about, like, running to the bottom of my cave, telling myself a story, then coming back outside and finding out that people heard me. And, like, I'm really good with Black people hearing me, and, like, that resonating, and knowing that everyone else can hear the conversation and hope that they just enjoy overhearing.
Mhm. I think one of the beauties for me, of being a reader who luxuriates in the written word and who loves to read and who loves to hear from people who write, um, is that I feel like I have a more complex understanding of the value of fiction, but also I'm better able to recognize the fictions that surround my everyday lived experience, like fictions like we're all equally safe, or fictions like, there are universal principles of collectivism that, that I should believe when the government uses those kinds of words, or that the pandemic is over, whatever, all of the fictions that I'm surrounded by every day. I feel like reading speculative fiction and black queer speculative fiction really helps me understand my place in the world, and also arms me with hope, in ways that I don't think I could say that I was before. Um, I want to talk a little bit about Black queer speculative fiction in particular. Eugen, in your answer, you talked about uh, perhaps deliberately choosing to write protagonists who are queer, as in an effort to normalize queerness. And in this space, queerness is normalized. I tend to surround myself with queer writers, or queer transitioning, or curious writers, people who are in the process of learning more about themselves romantically, in terms of desire, in terms of identity. Um, and I think that there's something very unique about Black queer speculative fiction that cannot be said for Black speculative fiction generally, because Black speculative fiction has been around for a very, very long time. But in my experience, there's a queering of Black speculative fiction, and I can't say when it actually started. I wouldn't suggest that I know that, but it hits different for me. And so I'm wondering, from all of you, what are your thoughts about the utility of Black speculative fiction, how it helps us perhaps look at real world experiences different, or um, to add a different lens? Like, what's your thought on its contributions to the way we exist in the world?
I could start. What I really like about speculative fiction is the safe space that it offers to voice a range of things in a reasonably harmless way. You could write about racism. You could write about rape. You could write about social injustice in some way, but put it in a world that is so robust and the characters are so relatable that it doesn't unnerve the reader. And then Black speculative fiction then takes that one step further by heroing Black people, which means you cast your gaze at Black people and you begin to tell their stories, you become their voice. And I have the privilege of coming from two worlds. I am African and I'm Australian. I have been in the village. I have seen how my grandmother grew and lived in the village. in a world that was not of privilege. I am in Australia in a world that is of privilege. My country, Tanzania, is one of the 42 countries that criminalize LGBT, you know, all that. You can get in real trouble, and sometimes there's even the death penalty for that. And so I'm very privileged, and so I try to immerse some of that into my writing. Yeah.
Others?
For me, I recognize that there are a lot of privileges in being a man. Not as many with being a black man, but I kind of like credit being queer with the reason that I'm a good person. The reason that I think so far outside of my experience to try to imagine what experiences are like for other people. Um, and like a chunk of my writing is about the overlapping of identities and what it means to belong to a community, uh, whether that is being queer in the Black community and how those things interact, whether it is neutral, whether it's negative, whether it's positive, whether it's being Black in a queer community, which can run the gamut of neutral, positive, and negative. Um, I think that being queer for me has made me a better person, but I think it also has made me someone who can go so deep inside of my characters and then look out and have something that I find startling to say. I don't know if it's always the same for everyone else, but like it startles me, and I'm like, okay, I think I have something here. And I'd also like to say that like the queering of Black speculative fiction also hits different for me. There's a different kind of heart. There's a different kind of shared space, and um, you know, bringing back singing as a metaphor, it's like reading a piece and like hearing someone sing and knowing that they're singing for me. It's different. It's just different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you, Eugene and Kindred. That was so incredible to hear. For me, my understanding and my experience of queerness is of desire and expression, but also of like subverting every norm, every expectation. And so the way that shows up in storytelling is exciting for me, especially in speculative fiction, which is already pushing the boundaries as to what a future is or what a past could have been. Queering that and centering queerness in that adds another layer of like subversion, but also just shattering expectations, right? And Octavia Butler did that. I know we all look to Octavia Butler with reverence, but she did that in having non-monogamous characters. And I know there's a lot of people who identify as straight or hetero who practice non-monogamy, but that is a queering of normative ideas of relationship structures. Like so having that reflected in writing, having anything that is a queering of whatever we're supposed to believe, just makes writing better to me. Yeah.
Does anybody want to?
Yeah.
Keep going? Yeah.
So slightly more, maybe a little bit more. I don't know. I don't even know what the right word for this would be, but when I was a kid, I knew from a very young age that I was definitely different. I didn't figure out the whole queer side until later, but I was a tomboy who had no intention of growing out of it, and I knew that much from young. And I was just like, I was raised by enough people who valued my independence, even as they tried to stick me in a box, that I understood where my limitations were and that I would just never be in that box. And having grown up into who I am now and met other queer people, especially AFAB masculine people, trans masculine people, anyone with any sort of um, gender queerness, I realize now that confidence and self assuredness that I grew up with isn't a given. And when I was young, I really took a lot of my personality guidance and moral guidance from the book characters I was reading. So, like, when I was little and I read Wheel of Time, I thought, you know what? I'm going to be like Lan the Warder. I'm going to be stoic and cool and obviously have a sword. But like, no one's going to mess with me and the people that I love. Like, they come for my Aes Sedai, I kill them, that's the end. And so obviously we translate that to the real world. And so I learned to, I don't know, extend a certain amount of protection to the people I love around me. And I can only imagine how much stronger I would have felt, how much more confident I would have felt if I wasn't imitating these like few kind of characters I identified with, mostly masculine characters, mostly male characters. And if I had been able to see myself in different types of butch womanhood or butch gender queerness that I now write, I feel like I wouldn't necessarily have changed, but I wonder if seeing the kinds of characters I like to write could help other people move through life with the same kind of confidence and self-assuredness that they see in my characters. If they can take those examples and say, oh, I want to be like this protective bodyguard character, but this character is actually closer to them, so they're not aping some sort of skewed masculinity or something like that. So that's kind of what I'm like. I don't know if it's an issue, but that's something that I would like my particular brand of queer Black spec fic to help with.
Thank you. Alex?
Well, for me, the process of storytelling is about asking what is the self, what is the world, what can be in the world, and what can't. And so for me, that's very much tied to speculative fiction, in that I have to speculate everything in order to render it. Uh, so, like me filtering this through queer personhood, through my version of masculinity, through my experience of life, like requires it to be queer. It requires it to reflect my own concerns and experiences, and so that to me is automatic.
Thank you. Yeah, Eugen.
Yeah, I'd just like to add on that a little bit because you've all given some really amazing answers that have made me think a little bit more. So I'm a very immersive writer, and when I write, it's almost like a curiosity. And I've told this story before where I was in a panel, and one of the panelists shared that she never knew that she was bisexual until she wrote a bisexual story. And so I think in writing these characters, it's also my curiosity. It helps me realize what I'm attracted to, what draws me in life. And so that's part of the immersive process as well.
I spend a lot of time I live in Toronto, and I spend a lot of time in legal community, and I'm starting to get back into community-based organizing and events. And I know that when I walk into a room of Black folks, I do not assume that that room is going to be safe for me. I appear heterosexual. I appear monogamous. When people engage me and when they meet me, when Black folks meet me in those spaces, I assume that they assume that I am your regular, degular heterosexual, either married to a man, Black man, or about to be person. And so I find like I am constantly in a state of coming out, right, and needing to adjust people's views of me. And I think that that's common for femmes who present in the world in the way that I do, right? I don't think there's much that I'll be able to do physically that would, as a femme, that would let people know that I'm queer sort of right off the bat, right? And so that means that I do experience a lot of anxiety when I'm in Black spaces. And it's always a question, like, how do I let people know that they are dealing with a Black queer woman, and when is it important? And for me, it's almost always important to get that handled right away, because it's a safety issue for me. And it also is a test that I use to decide whether they are going to be graced with my company for the rest of the event or into the future, and whether they'll get access to my resources and so on. And there's always that moment where I let something drop. Usually it's, oh, my wife something. And then I look around to see if anybody's like suffering. And if they're not, then we're good. Then there's a possibility for a relationship here. And that's it, quite recently, it's happened, and people have been wonderful. But I feel that way as well when I'm reading books. I recall reading, fantasy and science fiction written by, when I first started, after I discovered Octavia E. Butler's work. I started reading Black speculative fiction, mostly by Black male writers, independently published writers. And I remember reading their descriptions of community and noticing that there were no queer folks, no trans folks, no non-binary folks. And I felt the same way while reading as I do when I walk into spaces and know that the Blackness that's being promulgated there is a Blackness that doesn't include me. It's not intended to. And so when I read stories, that first moment when I realize that that character is queer or trans or non-binary or poly, that is always a moment of excitement. And I can identify with most of the books that I've read that have queer characters, I can identify that moment when I realized, oh my gosh, I'm dealing with a character who's like me, who I could hang with. And it is such a beautiful feeling. And it draws me into the work. I start trusting the work, right? Because I actually, as a reader, as a Black queer reader, I don't necessarily trust the world building of somebody who's never imagined me in their worlds. I think that erasure is spiritually violent. And quite practically speaking, if I'm going to pay $40 for your hardback as soon as it comes out, I want to make sure that you are writing me into your world, right? And especially on a platform like ONYX Pages, I don't want to lift up Black speculative fiction writers who have not turned their mind to people like me, my communities, my children. And so, and it becomes challenging because when these particular writers or titles are very popular, the absence of my voice can be really obvious. So thank you for sharing your views on this, because I think writing is such a healing act. And I think so is reading, right? And I know that I've had experiences, and I think I've spoken with some of you about this, where when I'm reading your work and I feel it deeply, I feel like I know you and like we're actually family, whether you agree to it or not. I feel like you're part of my community, and that's a really beautiful thing. So thank you for the worlds that you continue to build, and for the spaces that you're creating in the literature, in the canon, for readers like me to enter, to see ourselves, to learn how to navigate in the world, to imagine ourselves differently. It changes lives, and I really deeply appreciate it. Before we turn to the end of our hour together, I want to invite anybody who is in the live chat, if you have any questions for our guests about Black speculative fiction, about writing with purpose or reading with purpose, or maybe some of the wonderful things you've experienced reading their work, please feel free to put them in the comments. I have one more question for you, and it's about what's next. And I'd love to know more about your projects, anything that you can speak about right now, anything that you'd like the viewers and the subscribers of ONYX Pages to look out for in the coming months, year or so. This is your opportunity to share that, and I'll make sure to include in the description links to where folks can find you, discover, or continue to luxuriate in your work. So feel free to share if you'd like.
So this year, I have been very fortunate to have 3 books out, and one that is also coming out as a reprint. And so Major Fools, which is an Afrofuturistic dystopian novel, is the one that I spoke about, that has a bisexual character as a way of investigating, or my curiosity. And I also have a collection of essays that talks deeply to Black writers and Black speculative fiction and the way they have impacted me in different ways. And so that's an earnest Blackness.
I read Major Fools and loved it. I was actually talking about it a couple of days ago to someone, and I'm looking forward to reading it. Earnest Blackness. Thanks. Anyone else want to shout out what you're doing? And it can be writing. It can also, because I know that all of you, and maybe this is an opportunity to also talk about your work that's about building community, whether it's through podcasts, through editing, through holding workshops and things like that. Because what I find that's quite unique about Black queer writers is how much you give to the community beyond your creative work.
Well, on the creative side, I've got The Unbroken, obviously, is part of this trilogy, The Magic of the Lost, and the sequel called The Faithless will be out in March, and you can pre-order it now. But it continues to grapple with what happens post-revolution, what has happened in our world, how independent nations are sometimes locked with colonial metropoles even after independence, what kinds of manipulative or exploitative situations are left over in the aftermath, as well as some of this very timely questions of what do we do with monarchy, and who is there even such a thing as the rightful monarch, rightful king, queen, etc. So that's going to be out in March. But also sometimes I teach at this workshop system. I don't have any classes for the end of this year, but I highly recommend Roots, Wounds, Words. It's a great place for only BIPOC writers, but especially Black writers, to learn from some of the best Black folks in the business. So highly recommend checking them out as well.
And Sheree forgot about Terrain's arms. You forgot about Terrain's arms.
There will be more arms. There will be more arms.
Boom.
Oh, thank you. It's the first time that I've had a crush on like a specific body part. I'm like, not only do I enjoy Terrain's, I specifically am in love with Terrain's arms, specifically. And half of Twitter is too, apparently. It's like, it's quite a movement.
I had no idea that was going to be the highlight of the book. I really didn't.
Others?
Well, my first novel just came out in June, and I've got a couple secret projects I'm working on that I can't talk about just yet. But I will be teaching at the Stone Coast MFA program beginning in January, and I'm very excited about that.
Congratulations. And The Ballad of Perilous Graves was absolutely beautiful. I have a review of it on the channel. If you have an opportunity to hybrid read it by reading Alex's beautiful words and then hearing the narrator, I suggest that you do. And I hybrid read The Unbroken as well. Excellent narrator. I think it's such a pleasure to listen to a book while running your eyes along the page. It's a glorious experience. So if you haven't had an opportunity to do that, folks, please do. And I'm glad that students will be able to benefit from your teaching, especially at this point in your career. So thank you, Francesca or Elfie.
I'm just writing. I'm just trying to write. But I wrote a play. This is the first time writing a play. It's not speculative at all. I don't know when it'll be staged though, but I'm excited when that happens.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just been editing a script for something else. But when I have more, you'll be the first to know.
Thank you. Is your play going to be shown in where you are or
You
elsewhere in
know, I
Canada?
don't know yet because we just did like the round of like completing the play and then workshopping it with actors. So I think the next round is maybe staging it. We'll see.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm coming.
Yeah,
So
well, I'll send all the
wherever it is,
details.
I'm coming. Like,
Thank you.
thank you, thank you. LP.
Let me go last, child. Y'all know I've been busy. Okay, so last month, the issue of Speculative City that I guest edited, which is a QT POC issue, came out, and I'm super excited about that. There's some really fantastic writers, some of whom are my friends who are involved, like the illustrious Kel Coleman, AP Thayer, Derwin Mack, Matthew Olivas, Shaoni White, just like so much talent, and makes me very happy. One. Two, my short story Wanderlust just came out in Anathema. They feature only QT POC. It really, it's in my top 5 of magazines that I wanted to be in, and that has shifted a lot because magazines come and go, or you find out an editor is a butthole. And Anathema has always been in my group. See, you know what I'm talking about. Anathema has always been in my top 5 because it just hits different when it's your people who want your words.
Yeah.
And as always, I'm a co-founder of Voodoo Knots. I am campaigning actively and verbally in spaces to talk to people about coming to Voodoo Knots, getting the word out, but also I think it's time for us to start talking to people about ending up on some of these award ballots. People who attend Voodoo Knots really love it, and everyone who attends Voodoo Knots is Black. And Black, not just Black American, there are Black people from all over the continent. There are Black people in Europe. There are Black people in South America. There are Black people in the Caribbean, and they are coming and they're loving it. They're talking to us about how it's been life-changing for them. And I think the only way for us to end up on a ballot is if we can funnel some of those comments to the world, because I think the work we're doing is really important and it's opening up a lot of space for people. And the last thing is that Voodoo Knots has an anthology that's coming out in November 22nd. That I'm super proud of, that I co-edited, that I have my first poem in. And it has a beautiful cover by Paul Lewin, co-edited with the other 3 OGs, Hugh H.D. Hunter, Shingai Njeri Kagunda, and Yvette Lisa Ndlovu. And we've been working on it for a bit, and we're super proud of it. It's coming out of Android Press. So Voodoo Knots, do Voodoo Knots things, read my story in Anathema, and check out the Speculative City issue.
Thank you all. I hope that the Voodoo Knots group we can do something on ONYX Pages. It would be great to get everybody here on StreamYard and get them to talk about their work and all that. So that would be open invitation to all of you, because I love all of you always. So thank you very much for sharing that. And I will be, for those who are in the live chat and those who are in the replay, I will be sharing links so that you can stay tuned to everyone's work and to what they produce and their community work, because I think that it's important. I think readers, I think we need to be responsible. I think we need to read with purpose, but also to use social media to share with the readership, to share with publishers, to share with others about, how we're moved by what we read, because it does make quite a difference, so that we can make sure that the right people who deserve to be on ballots because of their work, the product that they create, get recognition for it. That's really important. All right. So I want to tell you a little bit more about what is in store for ONYX Pages, and also to issue an invitation and a call to action to those who are watching now live and those who will be joining a little bit later. So 5 years is a really significant milestone for this channel. So thank you. I have to say, oh wow, there's an emotion happening. I didn't realize how much I would love creating content and connecting with people. It has changed me. I think that it's changed BookTube and YouTube, let's be honest. And it has created a bridge for me between something that I really love to do, many things that I love to do. I love reading. I love people. I love the intimacy of connection. And I love Black people, and I love Black queer people. And ONYX Pages has allowed me an opportunity to connect to more wonderful Black people across borders, across age, across identity, and across a page. And that is something that I don't take lightly. It has meant a lot to me. It continues to mean a lot to me. ONYX Pages will continue. The things that I'll be focusing on in the next little while are endings and beginnings. So the Octavia E. Butler slow read we have every 2 months, we have slow read another of Octavia E. Butler's books. We've been doing it for 2 years now. And it will end on in January 2023. And at the end of the slow read, we will have brought over 1,500 people through all of OEP's published works. And that's really, really super exciting for me. And once that's over, it means that it's the end of any sort of ongoing project that I've had. So I'm hoping that next year, so 2023, will be an opportunity for me to sort of look back, figure out in the true Sankofa style, to look back, to look at what we've accomplished on the channel, and to decide whether the priorities will be more community-based events, which take a lot of time and energy, or my own writing, which is a thing that's developing, or focusing on review. Thank you. I'm terrified. Or reviews. I think that one of the values of BookTube is that people come to resource channels like ONYX Pages to learn what's out there, and I think that I'd like to refocus on book reviews. They're not the most popular videos on BookTube, but I think that in terms of what I'm trying to do here on ONYX Pages, that's the most important thing, is to read, to talk about what I've read, to encourage and to meet new and more established writers, and to be a part of that dialogue going forward. So for those of you who are watching, if I would love to know what you love about ONYX Pages, what you'd like to see continue in the next few years, what draws you to the channel, and I will think about that as I set my goals moving forward. So with that, we are closing in on the hour. I really want to thank Sheree, thank you, Eugen, thank you, Alex, Francesca, and LP for for coming to our birthday party, and for sharing this moment with me. And thank you, Tomi, who's here with her phone filming me from profile, which she does. Yes, Pat, the silent partner. And let me just share some of the comments before we go. So thank you, Lena. Thank you, baby. LOL. Always good to laugh. Oh yes, Terrain's Arms. There's a Discord channel conversation. Yeah, you don't even know. You think you know, but you don't know. Terrain's Arms changed everything. Thank you, baby. And I'm glad that you're here, Thrifty Simplicity. Also, Hazel, I see you. Thank you for being here. And Pat, thank you very much. Hi, Shade Tree Reads. Thank you. I appreciate it. And Juanita, I got you. Yes, they're all phenomenal writers. Yay. Hi, Brittany. Thank you for being here. Oh, thank you. Yes, fan who became a friend. Love that. Thank you. All right, everyone. So we are going to wrap up a little bit early so that everybody can get back to their Sundays. I'll be in the comments later. And again, a warm thank you to everyone for being here. And yay for ONYX Pages. It continues to be a pleasure.
Yay.
We're going to end the stream. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.